What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, delarose.com. That's DELARROZ.com. After Wonder Woman 1984 came out, I decided to grab the Wonder Woman Omnibus. This is the beginning of her post-crisis run, where she gets a brand new origin. She comes back. I haven't read any of the prior stuff. I haven't really read much Wonder Woman at all in my reading career, so I was very interested in this. It's written by and drawn by George Perez, who is a staple for DC in the 80s, from Teen Titans to Crisis itself. And Len Wein actually did some scripting at the beginning, which I'll get into a little bit later. This comes in an omnibus. There are actually 3 omnibuses of the George Perez run, and I just got the first one. Just check it out before I went into it. Got a beautiful spine. I really like the way this looks. It's very hopeful and cool looking. Nice cover, and the back right here. This covers, as it says, issues 1 through 24 of this series, and annual number 1. So you get 25 issues worth. The annual is an extended issue, so is issue number 1 of this book. The inside of the book actually has this whole wraparound picture on the back, which is pretty neat. And I guess I'll just take off the dust jacket for the rest of the review here. DC uses like a lighter cardboard stock than Marvel. It is a little flimsier in some ways, and you can see the way that it opens right here, that it's got a pretty nice eye to it, but the glue kind of doesn't stick all that great kind of on the corners. Whoops, right here. It is a little bit of a cheaper construction than the Marvel books, and because of that, it does get a little flimsy even after one read through, but it's also lighter to hold. So you've got benefits and drawbacks to the way that they do this, and I kind of like having it lighter to hold because that way it's easier for me to read through. Very nice table of contents. Really appreciate the way they did this here and laid out every single issue. I get a little lost. It annoys me, one thing, when omnibuses or trade paperbacks do the covers like this where they actually take out the numbering. I really want to see the numbering. I like it how it historically was presented, and I also kind of like to know where I'm at. This doesn't matter at the beginning of the book so much, but once you get into it, you kind of have to go back and reference where what issue you are reading, and that's kind of annoying. So I really hope they stop doing that with omnibuses at some point. All right, starts off with an introduction from George Perez himself. And from December 2003, and we get into it. I really like George Perez's art style. I think it's dynamic. I think it is just almost pinnacle of 80s comic art. Everything's very bright in the colors for Wonder Woman. Everything's very laid out. You know, they're starting to not get, I'd say, in from Silver Age, it's not exactly 100% traditional, but it is laid out pretty traditionally where, you know, you still got your gutters and all that, and separation of panels, which, you know, in 2019, 2020, 2021 comics, whatever year it is, those tend to blend in together. And I really think it's a cleaner look reading through books like this, personally. So it starts out, we get to learn about the past gods for a while of ancient Greece. Those play a big part, you know, Zeus and Athena, etc. And we meet this group of Amazons through history, and eventually, you know, Diana goes through a trial to go to the man's realm, and she does so against her mother, the queen's wishes, and but she wins anyway, and she becomes Wonder Woman. Now she's got this here, and they have a whole explanation as to why this is just like this, which comes a little bit later in the storyline. I'd say that the contrived elements of the story, like, you know, there was actually a woman who actually was Steve Trevor's mom, is I guess the spoiler, comes back and ended up in the Amazon realm for some reason, and they found this symbol because of red, white, and blue, and so they kind of integrated that into her look there. It's a little contrived, and the everybody's super related is a little over the top, but you know what? It's kind of works. I kind of enjoy that from the soap opera-y element of it. But there's a lot less soap opera with Steve Trevor than you think there would be in here. Steve Trevor's a little bit older, as you can tell, so he's more of a, I don't know what you'd want to characterize him. Maybe even in his 50s in this storyline. So he crashes on the Wonder Woman Island, or Paradise Island rather, you kind of get this whole deal where he's not a romantic interest for Wonder Woman, which is very different than most portrayals of Wonder Woman. Perez does these beautiful sceneries in the background, which is really nice to look at. And yeah, it's a nice read. This first storyline has Ares, and he's kind of gone mad, and he's manipulating the military, which hurts Steve Trevor. They think he's a traitor. We meet this lady, Julia. She's an older lady also, who has a daughter who's a teenager, and she's like an expert in ancient Greece and in America. So Wonder Woman, when she comes out there, this is kind of her cast of characters they're setting up. Steve Trevor's got this other military lady named Candy, who's large and in charge, and she's part of that also. So we really get this whole setup. Look at this beautiful. These splash pages are just absolutely stunning. That is beautiful work right here. So the art's really nice, and actually Len Wein's dialogue through this is top notch, because he's been an editor and writer in the industry at this point for 15 years. He's a veteran. We get some interesting characters here. This Decay takes over the daughter of the Julia lady, and Wonder Woman saves them in order to kind of get them established there. And this is middle of that sort of Ares war thing. So Ares is kind of sending bad guys at Wonder Woman through this, and it's building and building and building into a really nice plot. So this portion of the book is really excellent. I read through this very quickly because I was excited for it. And Wonder Woman's got some like amulet that is ancient and a mystery. This is kind of a crazy page from a layout perspective. Look at my panels list. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 panels. It's almost unheard of in comics. Artists would very much complain if he wasn't scripting it, or rather laying it out himself. A writer who turns in 18 panels on a page would get laughed at by an artist. But Wonder Woman finally faces off against Ares. She realizes he's mad. She uses her lasso. She uses everything. She uses the amulet. And eventually she wins. And all is well. Here's some ancient Olympians. Again, just look at the backgrounds, the perspective of these splash pages. It makes it worth it to read for sure. So we get some background about ancient Greece and how it all ties in here. Wonder Woman comes back, and at this point she meets this publicist who becomes a part of the cast of characters, and Wonder Woman's actually going on tours. What's interesting is between storylines, Perez really slows things down. So it's like you get your epic storyline here, which was frankly the best part of the book at the beginning. And then he slows it down to where you get this like sort of more personal plot line about things, and then this lady's paying attention. You'll notice she actually is Cheetah, and so we're gonna get to meet her very shortly. She's got some ancient magic, and she's obsessed with Wonder Woman immediately. A little bit different than the way the movie portrayed it, because she's actually a kind of much more high status here than she was in 1984. But you get that origin in this volume, so if you are looking to kind of look at the history of that, you can see that. Now, again, we get another slow issue after this, where, like, this one is all formatted like it's a newspaper article about Wonder Woman's doings. So it's very interesting. You get all the panels on the side. You get this sort of running narrative. I'm sorry, this is a letter, not a newspaper. He does a couple of these different things. He does newspaper articles at some point, I believe. There's a letter from Etta here, and then you get a letter from, who's this? Steve Trevor, I think. Julia. This is Mindy's letter. So all the cast of characters write letters about Wonder Woman in this one. And then that kind of slows things down. Now, I don't know why they put a filler issue like that in there when George Perez drew all of it. Doesn't make sense to me. But here we go. Here's the introduction of Cheetah. Really like the look of Cheetah in the comic compared to the movie. So they did very well there. And still really fun stuff. So we're back in America, and Cheetah's coming after Wonder Woman. You know, it feels like a very Kraven the Hunter type of storyline here, and it works very well. I really like this layout right here. Also see how the beast's eyes kind of transform the woman. It's very interesting. And then we get a knockdown, drag-out fight. So those are always fun. Back to the Greek gods who then want to test Wonder Woman for some reason. So she ends up back at her island, and she ends up going down this pit, and she has to face off against all these things. It turns out it's a twist because one of the gods is fake. She fights a Hydra. So all these cool things. Look at that. Yeah, I like Hydras. I've always been very interested in Hydras. Very good storyline also. Not quite as enthralling as the first, but there's some danger to the Amazon people, and she gets to fight some really cool beasts through this like gauntlet that she goes into. And this is where she finds out that Steve Trevor's mother actually was her namesake, basically, and her design sake for her costume and all that. So that's the big reveal here. She's like some apparition from beyond, and we get to deal with that. This does drag on a little too long for being in the gauntlet down below, where we see things happen. But learning about Steve Trevor's past and all that, it's a good payoff. Got the old god Heracles turned into stone down here, and we have Diana's mother come join her to try to help. And the gods kind of realize that they've been played through this whole thing. And eventually, Diana gets out of there. And we get another slow chapter where she's recovering. So it is the second issue within not very long where she's spending the entire time of the issue recovering. And when she gets back, she decides that she needs to meet Superman, kind of has a crush on Superman. So very interesting here. Look at this art again. Look at these. It's just absolutely stunning. And this is a dream of hers. But this is where the storyline really starts to slow down permanently, you know, compared to the cool epic stuff that it started out with. We get a lot of background. Here's Candy, and she's losing weight for Steve Trevor so they can be together. Can you imagine that in 2021? Oh my gosh, there would be shrieking on the internet about how we need to be body positive. But it's great. I think there's a good message that you should work on yourself and make yourself better. Why is that a bad thing? Oh, well. And we get this new character who has powers. She's being manipulated by a bad guy at this point. So she's not really a bad guy, but she is having to fight Wonder Woman anyway. And this is pretty interesting. There's a character in here who's like an assassin male thrown out here named Solomon. And we don't really see too much of him again after this, but he's going to bring her down. And Wonder Woman and her eventually kind of move away and fight each other elsewhere. So at this point, that's really the last of Len Wein working on dialogue. And I think you see a drastic turn in pacing at this point, because Len Wein really did pace things well. The dialogue really was snappy. And once George Perez gets into the dialogue elements of it, you can see that like he covers up a lot of his own art with a lot of text, and it really slows down all the stories from here on out. I read this first 400-ish pages very quickly. Then the last 200, it actually took me about a week to get through, just because it's like it became a slog at this point. Diana visits her Greece area again, and there's this like evil witch who controls animals and things like that there, and it's dragged out for several issues, and I just found it really hard to care about it personally. So again, the dialogue just slowed things down. The witch lady's Cersei from I guess ancient lore there, but it just didn't hit on the levels that the first couple storylines did. And I really think it's that I think it's Len Wein's dialogue that really changed things at this point. We had another sort of like arty one. We had that one that was done as letters. We get this murder mystery: who killed Mindy Mayer? Now this is the publicist Wonder Woman was working with for a while, and oddly, the publicist, she was only there for like 10 issues, and then boom, they kill her off in this like murder mystery. And this is all just like this background, like it's a detective show, and Wonder Woman shows up at certain points in it. Now again, the art's beautiful. Like I really love George Perez's art, but he runs too much dialogue through here. This is a memorable issue just because of the way it's formatted, like it's a detective case, which is just odd for Wonder Woman. But again, the character just wasn't around enough and didn't do enough to have her death really have too much impact here. She probably should have hung around for another 10, 20 issues and like really been built up as somebody who's like Wonder Woman relies upon it as an actual friend rather than an annoying publicist. As it was, maybe they just wanted to get rid of her because she wasn't that interesting. Who knows? They could have just had her gone away. But this is interesting too, and it's very 80s because it's like, oh, she was hyped up on cocaine, and that's a very 80s plot line through there. You get the cop with the stash and the glasses. Oh my gosh! All right, yeah, I just there's a few more returns to the Amazon realm at this point, and they're gonna they decide to like they want to interact with the Realm of Man, and they're gonna have like a exchange program at this point, but everything really slows down, and we get just a slow one where Wonder Woman's dealing with Julia and her daughter, and eventually they go off into the Amazons, and we have a annual. Now the annual is very slow also. It's got several different people telling stories about Amazon's past, so you get little world building here, but it does feel like exposition a lot, and George Perez does not do the art, as you can tell. Probably a little too busy on the main book for that, but he does write all the dialogue, which again, just his dialogue is just not as crisp as Len Wein's was, and so it just doesn't work out. And especially when you get a subpar artist with a ton of slow dialogue, the annual was really tough to get through. Gotta tell you that. I mean, it's nice to have all this backstory stuff, but most of it's like I couldn't care. Couldn't care. Now it starts a new storyline where Hermes shows up in reality, and I guess Greek pantheon's gone at this point. And look, these 80s high school girls listening to Tiffany. Again, like his splash pages and all that are just beautiful. And Hermes is like in this whole deal, and this is the best storyline out of the last 200 pages. So maybe he's settling into the role a little better at this point. But it was still tough, and we have this whole like knockdown drag out fight with some ancient thing that he accidentally awakened, and then Hermes kind of deals with it and runs off, and we get an indication that he's got a crush on Wonder Woman as a god, which is awkward for her. So that's that. It started off pretty strong, but once it kind of settled into George Perez's writing dialogue, it just really slowed down for me, and it's like they didn't know where to go with the book. It was the pace was really off. There's too many issues that are like filler issues to really slow down what's going on. So not as in love with Wonder Woman, George Perez, as I hoped I would be, to be honest. The beginning still was worth reading, especially up through maybe the Cheetah storyline. So I'll still call it like a 7 out of 10 overall, because it is decent and I like the art, but it just kind of missed the mark. You can see why Wonder Woman doesn't resonate like a lot of characters, because her rogues gallery and her background characters just aren't that interesting compared to a lot of others. All right, let's hit that like and subscribe button, everybody. We'll be back with extra reviews soon.